Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to our Police Advisory Board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. We acknowledge we're in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. So we had an agenda circulated. Hopefully everyone's had the opportunity to have a look, and I ask, if you're okay with that, I ask for a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Joseph, second by Councillor Porter. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. So we'll move right into the agenda. Before we do that, I guess, does everyone know everyone here? I'm wondering if, yeah, you know what, might be a good idea if you don't mind. We'll start with you, Al, since you're looking at me.
Alan Cole, I'm the Director of Protective Services with Municipality.
Mark Joseph, Councillor District 6. Dale Porter, Councillor District 7. George Pugsley, Citizen Representative.
Andrew Clark, District Commander for Cumberland RCMP.
Ryan Cameron, Off-Sencio for Cumberland RCMP.
Outstanding. For hoteling, District 3.
Jamie Stevens, Citizen Representative.
Okay, Amanda?
Amanda Kinnear, Clerk.
I'm Greg Harrod. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer.
Murray Scott. So thanks everyone for being here. So as you know, we've changed the format. Oh, sorry. Hi, Carrie. Thank you. Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Kathy. So as you know, we've asked the Department of Justice to change the makeup of our Police Advisory Board, our RCMP Advisory Board, from what it was to include full council, plus our citizen appointees and Department of Justice appointment as well, and obviously in our RCMP folks as well. So we've asked for that. Looks like it's good to go. I don't think we've actually officially received the written word, have we, Greg? To say
No, so it hasn't been formally approved. We're waiting on a letter from the minister. We've been advised that it will be approved as submitted with one change, and that is to ensure that the vice chair is a member of the public, not a member of council.
Right. So if if the deputy mayor had been here today, Rod Gilroy, he would have chaired the meeting, and then in his absence, and the vice chair, who would be, as Greg said, appointed from the citizens group, or the citizen appointees. We just thought it was a great opportunity for us to change the structure of the Police Advisory Board. That way, all council will meet with with you folks, Staff Sergeant and Sergeant Cameron. That way, council's apprised of everything's happening at the quarterly meetings. Or instead of asking other councilors or waiting for reports, they're hearing part of the meetings. We think it would be a great opportunity, and then they'll in turn share it with their folks that they come across. The other part of it is to live stream it like we are today. Public have an opportunity to see this as well and see what type of work's being done and hear the questions and the reports from you folks. So we think that's a great opportunity as well, particularly in the communication line. So we really look forward to that relationship as it evolves over the next while. So thank you for all being here. On the agenda, number 4, review revised terms of reference. Mr. Harrod.
Thank you, Worship. As you had indicated, we are going forward with a little bit of a fresh start, and so we do have a new terms of reference, and we thought it would be appropriate to at least review on a cursory level the new terms of reference. I'm just going to briefly take a run through it. It was included in your package of materials. The background speaks to the legislative and regulatory authority, and the purpose on page 1 as well speaks to some of the duties and roles of the Police Advisory Board as a committee. I'm going to skip that part because I'm going to talk about that in the next part of the agenda, which is the role of the Police Advisory Board. We'll talk about on page 2 the membership. As Mayor Scott, you had mentioned 3 voting members of the public appointed by council, a voting member of the public appointed by the Minister of Justice, all of the members of council, and those folks are all voting members, and the CAO is a non-voting member. Just a few housekeeping items with respect to membership and qualification to be a member, and these items are outstanding as we are still meeting informally. Each member of the committee will be required to take an oath of office as per Form 4 of the police regulations. And each member, all members of the board will also be required to submit to a criminal records check. Once we formally have the approval of the Minister of the terms of reference, then we'll go forward with those items. Also, in the regulations of the Act and in the Act itself, training requirements are set out, and so we will be arranging that training going forward. Terms of reference also refers to a code of conduct as per the regulations of the Police Act, and I'm going to cover that in the next few slides when we talk about the role of the Police Advisory Board. So really, I'm going to skip through that as well. The balance of the terms of reference talks about the qualifications to be a member of the Police Advisory Board and the role of the chair and vice chair and how they are appointed, and what constitutes quorum, conflicts of interest, and meetings and the role of staff. Happy to answer any questions. That's a pretty quick overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have about that.
Any questions for Mr. Harrod in regards to his comments? Seeing none, thank you. You all good?
Yep.
You're on
Keep
the
going?
radar. Yep.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the role of the Police Advisory Board. So just threw half a dozen slides together to, again, at a fairly high level, talk about the role of the Police Advisory Board. Again, it seems odd late in the term of council to be talking about a fresh start, but really this was policing in general was a priority of council, and we're getting to the point where we are looking at this new governance model, and we wanted to just start afresh, and so here we are. In terms of the role of the advisory board and the authority that is derived, or the authority under which that role is exercised, it comes from both the Police Act and the regulations of the Police Act. So the oath of office, which I referred to in the Code of Conduct, which I'll go through in a bullet form, comes from the regulations of the Police Act in Section 84, and that's available for you if you want to look it up on the Nova Scotia Legislature site. Look up the regulations. If anybody wants a hard copy of those regulations, we're happy to provide them, but I think it's 132 pages or something like that. So our friends, our RCMP friends and myself killed enough trees today. I didn't think that we should print another 132-page document. So the oath of office, code of conduct comes from the regulations. I'll talk about that in a minute. And a function of the board, or the role of the board, comes from Section 68 of the Police Act, and we'll talk about that as well. So, code of conduct. I summarized the code of conduct in a one-page sheet that I handed out, but I'm just going to run quickly through these bullets. It is the responsibility and the role and the requirement of members, all members of the Police Advisory Board, to uphold the spirit and the letter of the code of conduct, to attend meetings whenever possible, and to provide notice when you're not able to attend those meetings. To not, and this is important, not interfere with operational decisions or day-to-day policing, recruitment, and promotion. That is for the management of the RCMP and the management of the police service. There will come before the board matters which are confidential, and when required and authorized, the board will meet on an in-camera basis privately, and there is a requirement to keep those conversations and any documents that you gather during those conversations confidential. It's also important that individual members of the board not claim or hold themselves out to speak on behalf of the board. The chair is the spokesperson for the board and speaks for the board. Individual members do not. That does not, however, preclude members from disagreeing with a particular Police Advisory Board decision, and the Code of Conduct specifically provides for that. And if members are publicly disagreeing with the Police Advisory Board decision, when speaking publicly, it's required that you clarify that you're expressing your personal view and not speaking on behalf of the board. Very, very similar to very similar to how councils operate. It's a general requirement that you discharge your duties faithfully and impartially in accordance with the Police Act, and that you discharge those duties respecting the dignity of individuals. There are more details in the sheet that I handed out, but this at a high level are the requirements. It's also a requirement that members of the board do not use their position inappropriately to advance their own interests or the interests of those with which they don't deal at arm's length. You're required to immediately resign if you are seeking employment, including on a contract basis with a police department. So not just, for example, the Cumberland RCMP, but a police department. You are to refrain from conduct that could discredit or compromise the integrity of the board or of the police in general. And if you are the subject of an investigation, it's required that you withdraw, at least temporarily, from the board while the investigation is complete. Any questions on the code of conduct? Sorry for the lecture, but it's important, and it's fairly rigorous. Any questions? What I would say to the members of the board is that if, as we work through and as we operate, as we go forward on a day-by-day, month-by-month, quarter-by-quarter basis, if you come up against an issue where you believe you need to seek some advice with respect to the code of conduct, please come and see me, call me, email me, and we'll have a chat. And if we need to get further advice, we will. Any questions? If there are none, I'm going to continue on to the function of the board. So again, in accordance with the Police Act, and I guess I would say at this point that there are a few little subtle nuances in the Police Act and the regulations to the Police Act with respect to the municipal boards of police commissioners, with boards of police commissioners where there are more than one jurisdiction involved, so joint boards, and for police advisory boards where there is a sole service provider and a sole geographic area. And that's the situation that we are in. The RCMP are a contract police provider, and there is one police advisory board. There are separate sections of the Act with subtle differences with respect to all of those situations. With respect to the police advisory board, though, the role of the board is to determine, in consultation with the chief officer, which is Staff Sergeant Clark, present time, determine in consultation with the chief officer priorities, objectives, and goals for police services. Ensure that the chief officer establishes programs and strategies to implement those priorities, objectives, and goals, and ensure that community needs and values are reflected in those priorities, objectives, goals, programs, and strategies. And at the root of all of this, you see the term, the phrase community values appears a number of times. But at the root of all of this, the board is the conduit from the community to the police and is there to ensure that policing reflects community values, needs, and expectations. Continuing on to the last page of the handout, other functions of the board include recommending, not dictating, not approving, but recommending policies, administrative, and organizational direction for the effective management of the police department, and in this context, that is the RCMP service provider, and review with the chief officer information provided by the chief officer respecting complaints and internal discipline. Now, while the board is not involved in the day-to-day operations of policing, nor is it involved in the internal dealing with internal discipline, personnel issues, if the chief officer brings forward information, it's your duty to discuss that with them and him or her and provide whatever advice they're seeking. Happy to stop and answer any questions at that point. Fairly rigorous code of conduct, fairly straightforward roles of the police advisory board. I think that probably, as with many things, there is perhaps a commonly held misconception that the police advisory board, or in a town context, Police Commission is there to govern the police provider, to govern police services, and to provide day-to-day direction, and that isn't the case. And I think that's fairly well borne out in the presentation today. Happy to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions for Greg in regards to what we heard so far? No, everybody's good? Yeah,
Did we lose,
we did.
oh, there she is.
Oh, there she is.
Good.
Councillor Joseph, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's not really a question, it's just kind of a point. When I was the chair for when I first came in, a citizen knew I was the chair and told me explicitly to tell the RCMP what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and stuff like that. Well, I kind of told that constituent, it's not for example, there was a lot of speeders going on in their area and stuff like that. So we don't tell the RCMP, my job to tell the RCMP, it's for me to kind of recommend, we got problem areas. However, I did ask the constituent if they did call the RCMP, they said they didn't want to get involved. So those are types of things that I've dealt with moving forward. And I know my term is almost done, but it was kind of like, no, we do not control the RCMP. We do not dictate. We do not set their patterns. It's more or less a recommendation and only a recommendation. And from then, it's a two-way street. So upon that, they went higher, and I don't know what happened after that. However, on saying that, it's more or less this board is not a controlling act over the RCMP, of my understanding. Or am I correct on that?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Of the day-to-day.
I think I would go beyond that and say that individual members of the board don't provide direction or
No.
advice to the service provider. The board does.
Yeah. And, I think from my perspective, council through the board would identify priorities that we have as a council and that the board has for the municipality of taxpayers, and I think it gets dealt that way, Mark, as opposed to individuals being involved with, I think you're right.
No, it's
Thank
just,
you. Yep.
yeah, there's a lot of confusion, but this here is great to sort everything out.
Yep.
Thank you
that's
very much,
great.
Your Worship.
Thank you. Anyone else? You okay, Carrie? All good? Just want a little bit of
Delay.
a little delay in that, so let's make sure we don't miss her. Everybody good? You folks okay? Everything all right? Good, thank you. Yeah,
That's it.
good, yeah. You
Yep.
finished?
Yep,
Great,
I
thank
am.
you. So, that brings us down to number 6, distribution of the RCMP response to the RFP. Everybody has that now, I think?
I think Amanda
Everybody
handed
has
that
a
out.
copy of the
Yep.
response to the RFP. And we talked here about, the RFP itself and the response, and Staff Sergeant Clark, we talked about this morning, and, I don't know how you want to bring council and the committee up to date in regards to issues like some of the options that are in the RFP that are for consideration, I guess, for this group and for yourselves and council, whether it's the 24-hour coverage, whether it's the zoning, whether it's maybe you want to talk about some vacancies. I'm not sure how you want to, Staff Sergeant, how you want to roll that all out, but look, the floor is yours. Just feel free, however you think might best to deal with that issue would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so if I start with staffing?
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, sure. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
So, thank you. So, since I started in December of 2023.
Oh, hold on, Andrew. Let's get your mic on.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Okay, thanks. Since I started in December of 2023, our human resources are in a better shape. We're filling a lot of the vacant positions that we had. So my position was filled, obviously. The sergeant's position in Spring Hill has been filled. The corporal's position with the street crime unit has been filled. We filled 2 constables' positions. One is in place right now, and one will be in place mid-August. And we filled the corporal's position in Parisboro. So all the senior NCO positions and those constables' positions in SKU are very important to the functioning of the district. We do have 2 constables right now en route lateral members coming, one position in Parisboro, the other one in Advocate. The Parisboro member I anticipate will be here first, and then the Advocate will be probably, now it's looking like later in the fall. The Parisboro one should be earlier in the fall. I'm hoping September, October at this point.
Since February, Cumberland District's received 5 new cadets or constables straight from depot. They're all at various stages of their recruit field training, which takes 6 months, where they're with a coach officer. So our first graduates from that program will be finished early in August, that they'll be cut loose and they'll be full-fledged on their own and count as a body on the watch. So there'll be 2 in August, and then the other 3 will be finished on their field coaching throughout the fall. So that's 5 new resources. We lost 1 member on a lateral transfer to J Division, which is New Brunswick. So we lost 1 in a lateral, but we've gained 5 new recruits plus 2 laterals, so that's 7 at the constable rank. So it's a net benefit of 6. So for HR, we're in pretty good shape once these members arrive for Parrsboro and Advocate. The district model right now, we implemented prior to my arrival. The zone policing was implemented, and that was mentioned in the RFP with a north-south to the district, just due to the geography and the response time to calls. And essentially how that operates is if there's no other calls for service requiring multi-member response, members will stay in their respective zones. So some members in the north zone, some members in the south zone. The zone is essentially roughly divided by the Trans-Canada. They can transit into the other zone as calls for service dictate, but other than that, they stay in their home zone. The request of a meeting I had, Brian and myself had with Mr. Scott and Mr. Harrod. We were asked to look at the RFP. One of the options right now right now we do 20-hour policing with 4 hours of on-call every day, 7 days a week. One of the options offered in the RFP was 24-hour policing with no additional resources required, just with a scheduling change. We've looked at it at the office at the district level, and I've discussed it with our management, and we are prepared and able to do that. Just with an implementation sometime this fall. We will need some lead time due to training commitments, leave commitments, schedule commitments, and looking at a 6-month pilot and then reassess to see what needs to change, if anything, with regards to that. So the scheduling, I won't bore you with the details of the actual scheduling, but it would be a 24-hour model. There would be a limited amount of on-call during some quiet hours where we would be down to 2 members on the road for 2 hours. But we would have on-call members to augment those members in place, as opposed to no members on the road right now during our on-call hours unless they're called out. So that's something, I guess, for you guys to discuss, and if that's an option that you want to pursue further. Crime reduction right now, we've got several programs right now at the district level. We're actively involved with conditional sentence order checks, where we're checking people that are on curfew, house arrest, and nightly each watch is required to conduct these checks. And those are orders that are imposed by the courts. We were actively involved with multi-agency mental health meetings that occur at the Cumberland Regional Hospital, and that's about reducing waiting times for police when we're dealing with mental health matters in the hospital setting, which is a huge time commitment to us, waiting for assessments. I've provided some information, I know, to Mr. Scott, Mr. Harrod, regarding the community program officer, which is a public servant that would assist our community policing officer. And that's something where there can be more information provided down the road as required. We do have that program in place down in Southwest Nova in the Annapolis Valley area, and I guess it's quite successful down there. Recently, Brian and myself, we've attended several meetings, one in Pugwash just last Thursday, one in Amherst last Thursday, and another one in Amherst earlier in May regarding community issues surrounding crime, mental health, broader societal issues, and what could be done. Those meetings were organized by the MLA, and there was a Q&A at the end. There was a lot of questions regarding property crime. People are concerned with property crime in the area, especially the more rural areas of the province, the far ends of the district. As a result of those meetings, and I'll get Brian will discuss it here shortly, but we have a program. The MLA was referring to it as Neighborhood Watch. The RCMP program is actually Citizens on Patrol. Our neighborhoods are not really neighborhoods like in the true city or urban context, so we use Citizens on Patrol, which is essentially Neighborhood Watch, but you're partnered with someone in a vehicle, and that's a program that the RCMP supports, and we have more information on that. At each meeting, Brian did provide information on that to the public in attendance. And I know Sergeant Jared McDonald, I think, has been discussing same for the Spring Hill area. So right now, just circling back to HR, so right now I presently have 2 hard vacancies. And I have 2 members that are on light duties. I forgot to mention that earlier with regards to my human resourcing report. But our SKU unit is up and running and will be at full capacity as of August, mid-August. So that consists of an RCMP corporal, 2 RCMP constables, and 2 constables from the Amhersttown Police. And they go anywhere, inside Amherst, out in the county, into New Brunswick if the investigation takes them there, so they're very dynamic. With regards to SKU, and since the SKU unit has been back up and running, we have made 3 significant arrests regarding property crime. I know it's an issue that's been brought to our attention, so they are having some successes, and they're becoming more and more involved and more intelligence-led. And again, with the HR side, we had 1 member up from headquarters that assisted us for a week for some gaps in the schedule, and that was a few months ago. But just so you know, we are bringing resources in from outside as required to fill our schedule to make sure we're at our minimums. I can discuss the 24-hour policing further whenever you guys want to, whatever the appropriate venue is or time is. I'm certainly prepared to do that. But for now, that's just a kind of a high level or just a summary of where we've come so far since I got here for our resources.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Clark. So there are a couple thoughts I have about possible motions. So I'd ask, first of all, any questions for Staff Sergeant Clark or Sergeant Cameron in regards to what we heard here so far today? Any questions around any of those issues for clarification or none? So thought I'd have would be, so I think we'd entertain a motion from the board, from the committee, to recommend to council to ask the RCMP to initiate the 6-month pilot project for 24-hour policing with no additional resources at this time, correct?
That's correct, yeah, as per the RFP, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So with the current complement.
Yes.
And then beyond, yeah. But your suggestion was that it be reviewed in 6 months. Run as a pilot for 6 months and then review it and see how. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, I think just to measure our effectiveness and how, balancing service delivery with hours of work.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to see, because I know our visibility and accessibility versus workload, when you look at the GDPRM, the General Duty Policing Resource Model, the call volume's quite low during certain hours, certain days of the week. So I just like to have a look at that and revisit it in 6 months.
Okay. So if someone's so minded, ask for motions that, you have a thought, Greg?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just think about the wording.
Okay.
Just think about the wording of the
Okay.
motion, if
Yep.
I could. So thinking, Your Worship, that the motion be that the advisory board recommend to council that in accordance with the RFP, the RCMP be requested to initiate a 6-month pilot on 24-hour policing in the municipality. That work? Okay.
Does that work for you folks? Yeah.
Sounds
So
fine.
there'd be a recommendation back to council, and then council have to approve it, but you okay with that? Would someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor O'Telling, seconded by George. Okay. Amendment? So so on the question, any questions in regards to that motion? Any comments? No? Seeing that, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion's carried. Thank you. Andrew, were you going to speak further about the citizen on patrol or what you've said basically, or Brian's gonna?
Yeah,
Okay.
Whatever you'd like, Brian,
Yeah, no,
can
if you can
expand on
explain
that.
it, Brian, so we have a better understanding of it maybe a little bit, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, I can kind of go through, I've been calling it a bit of a sales pitch because we need some citizens to step forward First off, it's not an RCMP-led program, it's a citizen-led program that we assist in. So if somebody has to be a chair, somebody has to set up the meetings, we will attend the meetings, much like we attend this one. We're not in charge, we're just here to assist, and it'll be the same at the Citizens on Patrol. It's very little requirements of the citizens. They're required to work a minimum of 4 hours a month. They're required to be 19 years of age, and there will be some training that will be provided on note-taking, some training on if you see something, what you'd be looking for, what would be suspicious, what wouldn't be suspicious, and some training on your just eyes and ears. These people would just be the eyes and ears of the RCMP. If they saw something, they would have 3 different phone numbers that they could call. They could call 911. They'll be signed in with our dispatch at the beginning of their shift, and they'll sign out at the end of their shift. So our dispatch in Dartmouth will know who's around, what area that they're going to be in, their license plate, their make of their vehicle, and who's going to be in the vehicle. And we require 2 people in a vehicle just for obvious safety reasons. And they're, like I said, they'll be signed in and signed out, and their 3 numbers will be the dispatch center, 911, or also the local corporal or acting corporal will be aware that they're working that night, and they'll have the cell phone number for that member, so they can call direct. And if they see something, they can just call directly to 911 or to the corporal in charge for that shift. There's a few things they have to, they have to pass a criminal records check. They need to have a valid driver's license, valid insurance, valid registration. They are allowed to raise money. We can't provide them with any funds, but they can raise money for gasoline and any expenses that they might incur for their training days. They can approach the council, they can approach public businesses, they can approach whoever they want. I have worked in 2 different areas where they've had Citizens on Patrol, and in both areas it was a very positive program. For example, I've dealt with a drug house that had 200 plants in it that was reported by an open door from Citizens on Patrol, saw an open door, and they reported it, and that's what we ended up with. So it is a positive program. Their job is not to follow the police around. Their job is to basically go out and pick an area that they want to choose, and we don't tell them where they're going to patrol. If they're from Spring Hill, I would expect that they would patrol around Spring Hill, but if they wanted to vary, if they wanted to go out further into the county, that would be on them to go where they want. And again, they're just the eyes and the ears of the RCMP. They're not to get involved, and that'll be part of their training, is to make sure they're aware they're not to get involved, just to report any suspicious activity to the police. And they have bi-monthly meetings, a meeting every 2nd month, and there'd be an RCMP officer that would be present at that meeting. I would suspect that it'll be our CP member who's returning back in September, and so if not them, it would be probably myself or one of the corporals would attend the meeting. I don't know if there's any questions from that.
It's great. No, thanks, Brian. Any questions for Sergeant Cameron, Kathy? Councilor Redmond.
In your training, I'll give you an example of what was happening. My girlfriend and I were coming back from Truro. We saw this fella having difficulty manipulating a trailer out by the tracks there in that park.
Yes.
And we just thought, what a crazy driver he was. Come to find out later, it was one of the trailers that was stolen. So how would we, if we were Citizens on Patrol, how would we kind of clarify that was being stolen, or that, because it was broad daylight?
If it seems suspicious, then they would call it in, and that sounds suspicious, so if they
Because he
saw
couldn't
that,
drive properly.
they would call that in, and the RCMP would respond, and we might have found a stolen trailer.
Okay.
Yeah, but that would be their job. They'd have the 3 numbers to call, and they directly can get in touch with the corporal, which is probably the quickest way to get something out there.
Yeah. Thank you.
And they get training in note-taking, so if they're required for court, they would have training on how to take their notes, and that way they'd be properly prepared for court, because it's something they would have to consider, is that they could end up in court.
Yep. Yep. Very good.
Okay, Councilor Redmond?
Yep, that's
Great,
fine.
thank you. Any other questions or comments for Sergeant Cameron? Councilor O'Telling.
I was just wondering if you would recommend the citizens on patrol for each community, or would it be like a county-wide? It just seems like people in a community know that community better. But then would you have to have a bunch of different meetings to go to, you know what I mean?
I would suggest that it be a county-wide program, and then if somebody from Spring Hill wants to go out, then they would find somebody else from Spring Hill, and they would know Spring Hill, they would patrol Spring Hill as much as they wanted, but at the same time, if they wanted to drive down to Oxford, then they could drive down to Oxford, but there'd be no, I would recommend that we don't set a specific team for each area. I think it would be too complicated, and you might not get anybody for the Pugwash area, but if people from all over the county feel they can drive around the county, you might get somebody who would drive down to Pugwash.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Town, great, thank you. Any other questions or thoughts or comments? We talked about this before, Andrew, and I know I talked to Jared about it, Sergeant McDonald. What do you see as the municipality's role, or how the municipality would assist in a program like that?
I know in other municipalities where I've worked, they've assisted with I don't know if you'd want to call it a grant, but they've provided some help with the budget. I don't know if that would be something that your council would have to decide on. It's not a large budget, obviously. It would just be pretty much it's just for gasoline. They know that they have their own insurance and registration and all that, so it's just for gasoline. And just to support it and get it out there amongst the public, so that we can get some people who would. This program works, but you have to have people involved in it. You have to have people who are willing to go out and people to have knowledge of it. And just talking about it this meeting, maybe we'll get somebody who wants to come out for it. And it would be, for now, it would be just to call the office and ask for me, and I could help them set up a program. There's pamphlets, there's a website online, Nova Scotia COP, and it goes through the rules and regulations a bit. And basically, we don't ask much, just go out and get a Tim Hortons coffee, go for a drive, and see what you see. And if you see something, give us a call.
Maybe supporting it on the municipality's webpage, and I think we discussed providing meeting space, if that was appropriate, you know, if that was required. That could be something else that municipality could do.
Mm-hmm. So how would you, thank you for that. So how would this roll out, Brian? So you don't need direction from council,
No.
I guess, to start it. You don't,
No.
not like we do with the 24-hour
No.
consideration.
Yeah.
You just need I believe there's some support. Is that what?
I need a citizen group that's interested. If I can get somebody who wants to be the chair and somebody who wants to be the deputy chair, and then they can contact me and we can kind of go from there, but I need somebody who wants to take up the role. I can't be the chair or the deputy chair, so I can't set this up. So I need somebody who wants to set it up, wants to be part of it, wants to organize the meetings, much like this event. But I need somebody outside the RCMP who wants to set that up. So that's where I'm kind of like doing this sales pitch to hope somebody will call me up and say, I want to set this up and my neighbor wants to help, or.
Okay, I'm calling you.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that would be perfect.
We'll get together and figure out the best
Yep.
place to gather.
Okay.
So yeah, Brian, if we, we're just talking here about how we could utilize our communication folks, Daryl Cole, and how we could actually put that out publicly. So we need you to help us.
Yeah.
We need you to tell us what needs to be put out there publicly to request and to actually initiate the process.
Yeah, and I could get our media, I think I could get our media involved with just saying we're looking for volunteers for it. But again, the issue with that is it might come across an RCMP program and it's not. But if it comes from your media, then I think that would be better.
Okay.
And, yeah.
And your suggestion is to make it a municipal-wide, county-wide program versus
Countywide program.
specific to areas?
I think that's
Okay.
going to be a lot better, because otherwise you're going to have 5 meetings every
You're
2
right.
months.
Yeah.
And you're going to need a quorum, and it just might be easier to get a quorum if everybody's from the county just comes together. They can meet at our office, they can meet here, we can meet in Oxford, we can, Wentworth, yeah, we can meet, yeah, we
Yeah.
can meet anywhere.
Yeah, there are lots of halls around
Yeah.
the meeting
Sure.
space, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and the communities would like to have some buy-in, I would think.
Yeah.
So maybe between yourself and Daryl with the information that's required, would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're happy to help with the communications effort. Probably the message is best crafted by you folks. You know exactly what you need, and we're happy to share that.
Okay,
We're
and I
happy
can
to
get-
provide meeting space. I think those two things are fairly easy, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's great. And it's a great starting point for all of us, you and us, and, you know, it's a great starting point. Thank you for that. Council Redmond. Oop. She's flashing now. There you go.
Where I'm not reoffering next year, I would be more than pleased to work with them as a chair. And,
There you go.
he can use that in his publications now, that I'll be working with him and trying to get something together. And,
That's great.
my idea would be maybe to have two initial meetings in two separate parts of the county, like maybe a Wentworth way to cover that district, and then maybe Parsboro way or Spring Hill or something like that, just to get the volunteers, so that they don't have to travel long distances to come to the initial meeting, the first meeting.
Great, thank you, Council Redmond. So Sergeant, you said you hope by this happening today, you would get some response.
Yeah.
You just did.
I just did. My sales pitch worked.
Success. That's great, thank you. Thanks for that, Council Redmond. So you'll have something for us, for Darrell, to be able to use that to communicate publicly to.
Yep.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Any other questions about the Citizen on Patrol, or any thoughts, or?
Any council that's running next year, we're sending in a district grant fund.
Seeing none, thank you. So that brings us to number 8 on our agenda, statistics. Staff Sergeant Clark.
Okay, thank you. I provided 2 reports, first quarter for 2024 and the second quarter. Essentially, the stats from the first quarter are duplicated in the second quarter because they run year-to-date in there. So for the stats, I'll just refer to the Q2 report. And then I will refer back to Q1 at the end, because what I have at the end, I have just some files of note and some community engagement noted for each quarter as well. So I know there's, after some discussions before this meeting, there's some appetite or whatnot to have not only the total number of occurrences and occurrence types, but how those occurrences are cleared. So I have to look into that, about how we can dive into these occurrences, and without going into a couple thousand files, and actually seeing what the clearance is, whether they're, when I say clearance rate, I mean cleared by charge, cleared by other, which would mean, you know, non-charge, or unfounded, meaning the event, we're not able to ascertain if the event happened or not. So usually those are the 3 main ones: cleared by charge, cleared by other, which means some other diversion, or charge wasn't laid for various reasons, or unfounded. So I'll start, they're broken down by what are the old detachment areas for the 5 areas in Cumberland. So I can run down through each one very quickly. Any questions, please stop me right away. So they're broke down by our main types of occurrence types from our records management system. We have everything from provincial and criminal offenses, federal acts on here. As you can see, they vary a lot. If you look at the pie graphs, the pie chart for each one, they vary a lot depending on where the office is, and depending on where the office is relative to the Trans-Canada Highway. That has a major impact on the composition of the offenses and types of investigations for the detachment. So Amherst and Oxford are impacted significantly by the Trans-Canada Highway. Spring Hill to a lesser extent, but is still impacted. Pugwash and Parsboro, obviously not so much.
Can I stop you there and just ask a quick
Yep.
question on that?
Sure.
Is that okay, Your Worship?
Sure, yeah.
So the traffic occurrences here.
Yep.
Those would be, those would include officers that are in traffic, and not ones that are in the Cumberland district per se?
And
Is
they
that
all,
correct?
and traffic offenses, yes, and it would also capture traffic complaints that the district members respond to.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you,
So there is an overlap there.
thank you.
So, of note here, the more serious offenses for Amherst, starting on the first page for Amherst there. 5 arsons reported, 22 assaults, 20 break-and-enters, 22 check stops, 8 crime prevention activities. 38 mischief charges. And then when moving violations, when you move down there, so that would be, so an occurrence is, a ticket is an occurrence as well as a complaint. So they both generate a file number. So 738 there. Uttering threats, 14. Other criminal code, which don't fall into any of the previous categories, are 24. And other calls for services, non-offenses, so that's basically like an assist the general public. There's no offense being reported, but they still require the police for some reason. 209. So total files are 1649. Breaks down to 52 person-based crimes, 83 property crimes, 931 traffic-related, 1 drug, and 190 fall into other municipal, provincial, federal statutes, and 110 other criminal code, which don't fall into the previously mentioned ones.
Yeah,
Yep.
Councilor Redmond, please, yeah.
One thing I find alarming is 79 Mental Health Act. You think of the hours that you're tied up for 79.
Now, not all 79 of those would have necessitated someone being taken under the Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act and going to the hospital with us. That means it's reported as a mental health
So
issue.
how would you clarify that? Like,
How many
like if you
did?
didn't have to take them to the hospital, you're just going to the house? How do you,
So a complaint is made, we'll attend the scene, either with or without EHS. And for someone to be taken into custody under the Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act, they have to essentially be harm to themselves or somebody else. If those grounds don't exist, they can't be taken into custody because of that. There may be other issues at play there. So sometimes it involves intervention of a healthcare professional, whether it be EHS or they know they voluntarily go with EHS to see a physician, but they're not to the degree where they need to be taken into custody by the police. Other times it might be reported as a mental health issue, and perhaps sometimes that could be also have family issue overlap there, where sometimes we can offer them assistance, whether it means get them to a different location, get them other supports. It could be someone who's experiencing homelessness. We try to get them a place to stay, but it's reported to us initially as a mental health act complaint. So there's a lot of moving parts there to these files, and sometimes it's like the other criminal code. It covers a lot of different stuff.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Redmond? Okay, Kathy, okay? Just before you go on, I just noted in the RFP, and we talked about this before, and I talked to Assistant Commissioner Daly about it as well. It was really startling to me to read. So in 2022, the Mental Health Act, 1,333 hours of hours attributed to that. You know, that's a lot.
When we are in a position where we have to take custody of somebody, they're ours until such time as they're either obviously deemed okay or committed for further assessment. So we have the responsibility for that person. So sometimes that turns into a protracted time, because it may be initially they go to Cumberland, then no, they need to be taken to Colchester, so on and so forth. So it turns into a huge resource challenge for us.
Sure. Yeah, Councilor Redmond, please.
We have 2 psychiatrists now. Is that helping your situation some?
I'm sure it is. I can't say numerically that it is, but I'm sure it has to be. It has to be, yeah.
They can get assessed.
Local access and quicker, as opposed to going to Cumberland Regional and they automatically bump us to Truro. Yeah. And then the other thing is sometimes a transport hospital to hospital, they'll require us, they request us when that might not always be required on our end. So there's and that's an issue why Sergeant Cameron and Sergeant McDonald have been attending these multi-agency meetings, where they kind of have little firm up the protocol about when police is actually required or not. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Anything further for the Amherst stats before I move on to the next area?
Any questions for Staff Sergeant or comments? No? Okay. Carry on, please.
Okay, the next page is the monthly count, just refers to the stats I previously mentioned, just again, January through June, and you can see the breakdown per month. Oxford, rural. So, again, just a quick rundown on the major, the high points, so to speak, or the more serious ones. 1 arson reported, 5 assaults, 10 break and enter, 12 check stops performed, 2 criminal harassment, 9 breaches or failed to comply with court order, 4 Firearms Act offenses, 1 harassment, or harassing communications, 23 mental health and well-being check, 2 missing person, 0 sex assaults, theft under 5,000, 13. Our moving violations, 613, again, proximity to the Trans-Canada. 41 traffic collisions, a lot of that is proximity to the Cobequid Pass. 13 uttering threats. Other calls for service, 104, for a total file number of 1,047. 21 person-based crimes, 32 property crimes, 758 traffic, and 47 other criminal code, 134 other. Any questions regarding any of those?
Councilor Redmond, go ahead, please.
Where that's Oxford, so these numbers would include like Collingwood and Wallace, or not Wallace, Wentworth, Westchester sort of thing under
That's-
the Collingwood?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, under,
Yeah, the old, what would be the old traditional Oxford detachment area, yeah.
great, thanks.
Yeah, our boundaries are still based on the old areas. Okay, so again, the next page breaks them down for Oxford month by month. The numbers I just referred to. And then there's the graphic. Okay, Spring Hill. 3 arsons reported, 30 assault complaints, 32 break and enter complaints, 20 check stops, 3 crime prevention files, 11 criminal harassment, 3 Firearms Act, 7 harassing communications, 6 impaired operation complaints, 57 Mental Health Act, 1 missing person, 0 robbery, 2 sex assaults, 26 theft under, and 2 theft over 5,000. That's just a charge in the criminal code, over or under 5,000. 5 theft motor vehicle, and 34 uttering threats. Other criminal code, 27, and the total of all of the complaints is 784. From that, mined out is 84 person crimes, 68 property crimes, 4 drug offenses, 143 other criminal code, and then 175 other that don't meet any of the categories. So with Spring Hill, the dynamic changes a little bit. The person's crime seems to be a little more focused, and the numbers are slightly higher based on the more of a town policing model there, and that's quite common based on my experience. That would be expected. Any questions or comments for Spring Hill?
Mark was awful busy with 62 mischief, gotta stay home.
Good,
Okay.
good, thank you.
Okay, so again, the next page is the Spring Hill monthly count, broken down month, January to June, followed by the graphic. Carsboro. 0 arson, we had 10 assaults reported, 12 break and enter, 5 check stops, 14 criminal harassment complaints, 3 Firearms Act, 4 harassing communications, 2 impaireds, 33 Mental Health Act complaints, 2 missing persons, 0 robbery, 1 sex assault, 11 theft under 5,000, 3 3 theft over 5,000. 10 uttering threats, 5 other criminal code, for a total of 383 occurrences. Pulled out from that is 39 person-based crimes, 35 property-based crimes, 1 drug offense, and 46 other criminal code. Any questions regarding Parsboro numbers? Okay, so the next page again is the January to June breakdown by month. Then the graphic. Pugwash. 1 arson reported, 10 assaults, 24 break-and-enters, 7 check stops, 5 crime prevention files, 6 criminal harassment complaints, 3 Firearms Act, 2 harassing communications, 29 Mental Health Act, no missing person complaints, no robberies, 2 sexual assaults reported, 9 theft under $5,000, no theft over $5,000, 13 reports theft of motor vehicle, 11 uttering threats complaints, and 13 other criminal code offenses for a total of 436. From there, 31 of those were person-based crimes, 47 are property-based crimes, 63 are other criminal code. Now, our break and enters for Pugwash are higher than the other areas. And that's consistent with the issues that we've been having in that part of the county. And that's what I would expect based on our number of property complaints we have for property crime. The break and enters are up, the thefts are up a little, but the break and enters are up significantly the last 2 years.
If I could ask just a quick question. Theft of motor vehicle includes anything, so car, truck, side-by-side, motorcycle, snowmobile, all of that?
Usually it would be a vehicle that would have to be registered.
Okay,
Yep, that would usually be how that would go.
so a trailer,
No, trailer's not a motor vehicle.
okay?
Yeah, so I guess I should clarify, it has to be self-propelled, so,
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
But usually I can't, without looking at each one, I would say that the lion's share of those are trucks and cars.
Okay.
Usually the four-wheeler thefts and whatnot, they come under theft under or theft over. That's
Okay.
been my experience of reading files, yeah.
And so, thank you for that. So just another random question, I guess. So I know the street crime unit is just kind of getting back into its groove. Where does that stuff get reported? Where it happens, or is it all Amherst because SKU is there, or how's that work?
So the occurrence address is wherever it's, so the initial complaint would come in, a general duty member would attend that complaint and deal with it on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we get a pattern or a bunch of stuff that we want to look at further, SKU would take it. They don't have to report it in Amherst. Anywhere in the district that comes to our attention, SKU can deal with that. And they've spent as much time probably in the Pugwash and Oxford detachment areas since I've been here as they have had in Amherst with regards to investigations.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on that, so if the unit investigates whatever in Wentworth, where would that be recorded as a crime?
So Wentworth would fall under Oxford.
Okay, so it would be under Oxford stats?
Yes.
Oxford rural?
Yes, that's
It is,
correct.
okay.
Yeah, they follow the old detachment area, so
Right.
where Oxford used to be responsible
Yep.
for Wentworth. It's the same boundaries essentially are
Okay.
are kept, yeah.
Thank you.
Question, just wondering, about theft of motor vehicles being so high in the Pugwash area, what's going on there?
Well, as our break and enters high, a lot of people committing property crime, unfortunately. There's a lot of problems in the area with property crime spike So we have theft under 5,000, theft over 5,000, break and enter, motor vehicles. As we discussed, I know at a couple of community meetings and in Wentworth, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times motor vehicle thefts are thefts of opportunity. The access to the vehicle is not restricted because the doors aren't locked, and quite often now the fobs are being left in them. So that's certainly not helping things, because it's easy now to leave a fob in a vehicle as opposed to before, kind of the keys, I think was more of a physical action to put it in and out of the ignition. So I think that's part of it. The other part of it is the people that street crime have been targeting are specifically focused. It's a few people doing a lot of the property crime. And the ones that we've arrested right now, we already see a difference with our more recent stats. I can see a reduction in certain areas. So I think that the motor vehicle thefts are, all the property crime are all tied together. You know, you steal a truck to go do a break and enter. I hope that helps answer.
Yeah.
Okay, sir?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, next page, they're broken down month by month, and then there's the graphic again. So I just have some, want me to run through the notable files at the end there? Okay, so I'll start with the Q1 report, just to, I need to do it in, my OCD makes me have to do it in order. So just from the Q1, just on the back, notable files. So a perfect example of initial complaint of a stolen vehicle from Parsboro. The vehicle was then involved with a theft of gas in New Brunswick. Then the vehicle was recovered the next day at the scene of another vehicle theft in Parsboro, where several other vehicles were rummaged through. A break and enter occurred at the Nova Scotia Power Depot, where other items were taken. And then 2 days after that, the suspect vehicle was involved with a gas and go in Digby. And then a day later, it became engaged by our East Hants member, so Enfield, and they were involved in a pursuit and an arrest. So these people are traveling not only all over the province, but into New Brunswick as well, with stolen vehicles, committing property crime. So that one incident, or incidents related to 6 files, involved 2 males that were taken into custody after pursuit. We had a robbery and home invasion in January in Port Phillip. 2 individuals were arrested in that. Vehicle was stolen, and multiple criminal code charges. That involved the theft of a vehicle and crash, and then stole another vehicle. We had break and enter and theft from a school construction site, and that was in Spring Hill. We recovered a lot of tools from that, and we ended up charging 3 individuals there, 32-year-old male and a 38-year-old female. And that was over 15,000 of tools that belonged to PCL Construction that were returned to them. We had our events at the border, have been keeping us busy. Certainly, I know prior to my arrival and since I've been here, we've had lots of activity at the border. So we had a 2nd anniversary that was conducted there, no issues. But did tie up some of our resources. The next one, I was actually at the scene there filling in the shift. That was a gentleman we were able to help out during a blizzard. Ended up getting a snowplow to clear his yard, get EHS access, and get him out to the hospital. Had to bribe his dog with bacon to allow us access to the house. But we got her done. I know one that was aware, a lot of you were aware, just outside of Oxford there, we had an emergency response team deployment there involving a male with a firearm in January. We got the emergency response team in place and the residents contained. And then we had information that the gentleman was actually, we were told he was in the residence, and it turns out he was actually in the town of Amherst. So once we had all the resources in place, of course, they ascertained he was in the town of Amherst where he was arrested. We had a fatal house fire, unfortunately. There was a fatality, and a medical examiner and a file marshal are investigating that. The fire was ruled to be accidental in nature. We had a report of a suspicious vehicle parked on the side of the road. Members attended, investigated, and the truck and trailer were both stolen, and they contained stolen windows from a local hardware store. So a suspect's been identified with that, and that's still under investigation. One of the larger files that SKU's been involved in since I got here, we had a major stolen property file in Macan area, and we recovered two properties, two separate search warrants, two separate individuals related to one another, and combined it's over $500,000 of equipment. Heavy equipment, recreational vehicles, newer pickup trucks, vehicles that had engines taken out of them, all kinds of stuff down there. So it was about $350,000 from one property, and then it was, I think, right around 200 from the other property. Yeah. So a little over $500,000. Front end loaders, a lot of gear there. So that male's still in custody. Our members assisted with the evacuation of All Saints Hospital in Spring Hill. Our members helped EHS get into Service Road 104 near Spring Hill there for a serious injury ATV crash and helped extricate the victim. We had a fatality in Highway 4 in Wentworth, car versus heavy commercial transport truck head-on. A person from the car was killed, the driver suffered minor injuries. Traffic analyst attended. No charges pending there. Members attended a fatal structure fire in Hansford. Unfortunately, another person was deceased as a result of that fire. Fire marshal investigated. And we had a complaint of a firearm where there was a dispute between a unknown male and a female, Mechanic Street in Spring Hill. And argument devolved where the male drew a firearm, a handgun, and pointed at the female. Members went to the scene. He was gone on arrival. She wouldn't cooperate, the victim. However, the suspect was identified, and he's being charged with 12 offenses. That's the files from the first quarter. Second quarter, the one that started right off the hop there, the 1st of April, was our border protest, where we had our campers at the Tourist Bureau. And they were on site until the 5th of June. So that took up some resources on the front end, not so much on the back end, but on the front end initially we had a lot of resources tied up there. On the 23rd of April, we had 2 fatality motor vehicle collisions back to back. One was a head-on fatality on Highway 104 near Exit 4, near Amherst. And while our members were on scene at that, we had another fatality, single vehicle fatality on Highway 2 in Mapleton. So that was a busy day. There's no charges in either of those files pending. We were made aware of a protest here at the office, at the municipality office, but I know our members kept tabs on that, and that was pretty respectful and pretty tame. No issues were reported to us. On 28th of May, our members encountered a pickup truck that was towing a trailer operating erratically. They tried to stop the vehicle and it wouldn't stop, and due to the type of nature of the offense, no pursuit was initiated. And another complaint was received about the vehicle, which was now heading back westbound. So initially it was eastbound, now westbound. And just by luck, our helicopter happened to be in the area transiting, so we used our helicopter just like big city police force. And the vehicle was eventually located. She got off the road and abandoned the vehicle. Dog was on scene, the helicopter, and they tracked her and found her hiding in the bush. Was taken into custody. Vehicle was stolen from Moncton. Cannabis Act investigation on the 3rd of June. SKU members and the Cumberland District members executed a Cannabis Act warrant on a group selling in Crown land near Highway 2 in Fenwick. 2 males were arrested. 4,770 grams of cannabis, 81 grams of hash, 80 grams of shatter, and $2,600 were seized, as well as a trailer and a very expensive pickup truck, and those vehicles are all are still all seized. We had an assault complaint with a weapon from Spring Hill as a result of a motor vehicle collision. Someone tried to offer assistance, and they were stabbed. Turned out to be a superficial wound in Spring Hill. Both subjects have since been arrested and charged. On the 13th of June, we had one of our prolific offenders was involved in this file. It was a complaint of a collision between a four-wheeler and a pickup truck. And the operator of the four-wheeler pointed a firearm at the driver of the pickup truck before fleeing the scene. That's one of the gentlemen we had a warrant for. He's in custody right now, over 50 charges pending. And that's kind of the high points, I guess you call them, of the file, the more notable files. Community engagement. I know myself and the district operations officer and Corporal Dillon from Community Policing from Halifax, we attended African Heritage Month, the Amherst Town Hall. On the 7th, myself, we attended and Brian, we attended the Wentworth meeting, Town Hall meeting. Took a lot of questions there. On the 15th of March, member attended Parsboro Fire Hall to answer some questions regarding consent, as well as members also went to the Parsboro High School for presentations on safe driving during that quarter. Got a lot busier for us in the second quarter with now having a few more human resources in place. So Sergeant Cameron attended a wellness domestic violence court stakeholders meeting. Members attended Agriculture Safety Day in Oxford. I attended a Trails Act Committee in Oxford meeting regarding using ATVs on the roadway. We attended the Department of Justice information session in Spring Hill at the Murray Center. On the 13th of May, a car seat safety check stop information session was conducted by our members and traffic services. While I was away, Brian coordinated the Police Week event in Spring Hill, and I didn't get there myself, but I hear it went very well. I know we had a lot of agencies there and a lot of interest, and Constable Dow assisted very much with that, with organizing that. We also sent members to the Amherst Town Police Week event. They participated in the parade in Amherst. Jarrett's been a regular at the, Sergeant McDonald's been a regular at the workshop, GOVRC workshop in Spring Hill. I know he goes there regularly for coffee break time. On the 28th of May, they held a MAD impaired driving education event at the River Hibbert High School using the go-karts and the impaired vision goggles. Myself and Brian attended the MLA roundtable on the 29th of May in Amherst that was, I think, hosted by MLA Smith McCrossan, discussing property crime, addiction, mental health, homelessness issues. On the 30th of May, there was a MAD event for impaired driving education at Spring Hill Junior and Senior High School. On the 30th, Constable Manuel attended the Amherst Regional High School in the town of Amherst to talk to staff and students about policing. On the 4th of June, myself, Sergeant McDonald, and Sergeant Cameron, we went to the contingency discussion exercise in Amherst, hosted by EMO regarding concerns for the Chignecto Isthmus and flooding concerns, and trying to come up with some mitigation strategies and whatnot. On the 4th, 5th, 6th, and again on the 6th, so we conducted 4 bike rodeos in River Hibbert, Pugwash, Parsboro, and Spring Hill to promote road safety. It's one of the priorities. On the 6th, Sergeant McDonald attended the Ground Search and Rescue meeting in Spring Hill to present long service awards to their members. He also, on that same date, attended the Miners Memorial dedication in Spring Hill. On the 8th of June, 3 members attended the Autism Walk in Amherst. On the 10th, Cumberland RCMP were represented by Corporal Smith for the Pride Flag raising. On the 12th of June, I went to the Restorative Justice Annual General Meeting for the Restorative Justice Society's 25th anniversary and board meeting. And I know Sergeant McDonald's been out with Councillor Joseph to see some people in the community there on the 13th of June. Constable Berg, one of our new members, he attended Spring Hill High School graduation ceremonies and parade on the 13th and 24th, respectively. And on the 26th, a member from Vancouver Police Department was doing a cancer fundraiser, driving across or pedaling across the country, and he was escorted by one of our retired members, Corporal Jen Clark, and a member from Colchester, for his time transiting through Colchester, or Cumberland and Colchester counties. And we had a hard time to find cyclists who could keep up with this guy. So we got one member from Colchester and Corporal Clark there. So that's the high points of our community engagement. I know I've talked about briefly, you want me to touch on the resources at the end there? Yeah, okay. So the district composition right now as it stands is district commander, staff sergeant, the operations NCO is a sergeant. Our community policing officer is Constable Penoyer. She'll be back in September. She's on parental leave right now. Our CLO, or court liaison officer, is a public servant. She works out of the Amherst office. Our domestic violence coordinator and district administrative support, both public servants, both working out of the Amherst office. Amherst detachment positions are comprised of a corporal and 5 constable investigators. 2 of those constables right now are currently on the field coaching program. And that's a 6-month program where they're paired with a coach or field officer for that 6 months. And there's 1 public servant dedicated to administrative support there. Oxford detachment corporal and 4 constable investigators. 1 of those constables right now is currently on their field coaching. And there's 1 public servant. Parisboro, NCO is corporal. There's 5 constable investigators. Currently 2 vacancies right now. That's the 2 members I referred to earlier. Constable Warren's coming from Newfoundland, and Constable Gallant is coming from the north to Parisboro and Advocate respectively. And 1 detachment assistant there in Parisboro. In Pugwash, there's 1 corporal and 3 constable investigators and 1 public servant. Spring Hill office, sergeant in charge is Sergeant Jarrett McDonald. There's 6 constable investigators there. 2 constables are currently on field coaching program and 1 detachment assistant. And our street crime unit is comprised of an RCMP corporal, 4 investigator constables, 2 are RCMP, and 2 are Amherst Police Department. And they fluidly go inside and outside of Amherst. They don't have any boundaries with regards to the town of Amherst versus Cumberland County. That's all I have. Any questions about anything there?
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Clark. That's a great report, lots of information, and it's really appreciate it. Any questions or comments from anyone in the committee? George, go ahead, please. Yep.
Mention of something down around Pugwash, ATV and operator pointed the gun at
Is that the one that starts with, sorry, go ahead.
the ATV operator pointed a gun at somebody that he ran off the road.
Yes.
And RCMP had put on Twitter a picture of a half-ton that they were looking for. And then within a few days, it was reported that this gentleman and a lady were arrested, but there wasn't anything about that the half-ton no longer needed to look for, because I happened to see it a couple times since.
Okay.
And I called in to your regular number the first time that I saw it, and then the second time I saw it just being used by someone doing repairs at a place. So just sometimes it seemed as though perhaps we were no longer looking for the blue and white truck.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Sure. We're good at when a person is located, but we're maybe not as good as
Yeah.
at a vehicle.
Yeah, because it was,
Yeah.
it stood right out as being something different.
Sure. No, that definitely,
Just a
definitely.
point.
Yep, no, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, George?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other members, any questions? Jamie, go ahead.
Yes.
Working towards mental health, trying to reduce the hours there, what avenues are you taking?
We've come up with a form for EHS. At one time, they would just come out to the RCMP and say, we need help with the transport to Truro. We need you to follow an ambulance to Truro, and they would just ask and we would go. And through meetings there with the emergency, the head of emergency, the head nurse there, we brought that up, myself and Chief Pike brought that up as a problem. And they now have a form that EHS has to fill out and justify why they need the RCMP. So that would be one example. The other is just by meeting with people and getting to know faces. When I say that we had somebody that waited 24 hours to see a doctor, it might not be something that the people in charge of ER are aware of, and it just brings that to their attention, and then they bring that to the doctor's attention, and it seems to, I can't prove that it helps, but I believe that it helps get us in and out of emergency quicker than if we didn't have a relationship with them.
Okay.
Okay, Jamie?
Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from anyone?
I have another one.
Go ahead. Yep.
Highway. The overlap, you said there was an overlap there, and that's what's causing the bigger pie in the closer,
So Amherst and Oxford primarily, and Spring Hill somewhat, are close proximity to the Trans-Canada.
yeah, in the federal cover our highways, right?
No, provincially funded positions.
Okay.
So provincial, so there's traffic services positions that their primary focus is road safety. So their job is aggressive drivers, impaired drivers, occupant restraints, and distracted drivers. That's their focus. So everything they do is enforcement or education, but usually enforcement.
Okay.
So they're out there laying these, so when they write a ticket in our area, it generates an occurrence number. So it generates a file. So those positions are not Cumberland District positions, they're provincial traffic service positions, what used to be called Highway Patrol.
But yet you're registering them in our,
Well, they come, when we capture the stats,
Yeah.
they're captured. So it doesn't go by, Highway Patrol did this and we did that, it goes by geographical area.
okay.
So they're captured in, their tickets are caught in our
I was just
stats.
wondering if a way to separate it where we're seeing where we're paying for our people, and then Provincial's paying for their people, right? You know how they
Well,
I know that might be hard, because
yeah,
I know
it's-
some of
it's-
the highway guys, they come inside and they do. their-
Correct,
Yeah,
right?
I
So,
know that.
that's right. So the provincial positions are backing up our members in Pugwash and Parisboro. They don't just work on the 104, they work on the 2, the 6, the 366, like any provincial roadway, basically outside of the town of Amherst. There is fair game for them, but their primary focus, just based on traffic volume,
Okay.
is the 104. Now, what further complicates it is they're not responsible for responding to collisions on the 104. That's a district responsibility. So they're responsible for enforcement, and they're essentially a standalone unit. They work in our office, but they don't report to me. They have a commander in Truro, but their mandate is slightly different. So if it's a complaint of a crash, Cumberland District deals with it. Complaint of a erratic driver or a traffic hazard, we deal with it. But they might be out there, they'll help us. They're not gonna help us, but it's our responsibility to address the file.
Okay.
The same as they might go out for a day, because they don't have to attend calls for service, they can bump out 8, 10, 12, 15, 18 tickets. Our guys might write 2, might write 4, but they've got to go to calls for service. So it's a difficult thing to pull one to the other. I'm not saying it can't happen, but
No, but
it's
I
not
always knew that
simple.
they covered too, and internal too, not just the highway.
They do, yeah, they do roadways all through the county. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jamie?
Yes.
Great, thank you, thanks for that. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments for Sergeant or Staff Sergeant? Carrie, you okay? Is she on? Great, thank you. Folks, look, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I just want to say that, first of all, thanks to everyone for being here today, and thank you, Sergeant Cameron, Staff Sergeant Clark, for the information. It's great information. I think it's a great format going forward for entire council to be part of this process. We get back into the fall and see a full council here, and along with our citizen appointments. The other part of it, be able to live stream this so folks can actually watch it, and hear the information you're sharing with us. I think it'll be great. I think it'll go a long way to serving the residents and you and us and all of us together collectively. So thank you for that. If there are no further issues, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Joseph. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Thanks very much.